Good morning. Welcome to the amazing race, how to weather the storm as you reach your goals. My name is Charles Weathers, and I'm excited to share a few lessons that I have learned over the years with you today, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. First of all, congratulations. Why am I congratulating you? I'm congratulating you because the fact that you are still here is evidence and proof that you've already weathered some storms. You've already seen it through. You've overcome obstacles. You've had good days and bad days, high points and low points, but you're still here. You maintained the course and you saw it through. So, congratulations for that. And hopefully, during our time together today, I'll share a few lessons learned that will help you continue to weather the storm as you reach your goals in this amazing race of life and business that we are in. As we start, I want you to consider three things. And if you're taking notes, feel free to write these down. I'm going to be talking about a journey today, and the journey is going to be within a particular framework. And the framework are going to be vision, mission, and values. Think about your firm, think about your organization, think about your company. Vision, mission, and values. Vision, that aspirational state of being that you are trying to attain or achieve. You probably have a vision statement on the wall in the lobby, or a vision statement on your website or the business card. And what's your mission? What you do to get to the vision. You know, we do mission to get vision. The accomplishment of the mission results in the realization of the vision. Imagine, picture a road, this long highway, and vision is at the end, and we can see it, but we can't see it. It's there. It gets cloudy sometimes, but we're headed there. It's our North Star. And the mission is what we get up every day. We're doing this to reach that vision. And then the third component of this are our values. Now, we define values as non negotiable principles we will not compromise that guide our decision making. I think that's worth saying again because it's very important. Non negotiable principles we will not compromise that guide our decision making. Those are our values, our corporate values. Why am I talking about vision, mission, and values as we prepare to weather the storm? Because on this journey, when the storms rise, when the storms surface, when we have challenges, if we don't have the vision, mission, and values top of mind, if we don't understand the direction that we're going in, if we don't understand what our core business is, mission, if we don't understand what our values are that guide our decision making, we can get off track. Some people call it mission drift. We can lose our focus. We can end up someplace we have no business being. So on a clear day, it can be challenging to recall the vision and the mission and to really adhere to our values. Imagine when you're going through a storm as an organization or a company or a firm. Oh, it can be extremely challenging then. So whether there's clarity or not in life, in our surroundings, even in the midst of uncertainty, we always have to return to what's our vision, what's our mission, what are our values? Because then when the storms surface, we have something to help guide us through that, even when we can't see what's right in front of us. So please remember vision, aspirational state of being, where we're going, mission, what we do to get there, values, non negotiable principles we will not compromise that guide our decision making. In this amazing race of business and life, as you reach your goals, don't ever forget about those three critical elements: your vision, mission, and values. Now, once you have those in mind, I want you to remember something. Storms are going to come. There's not a plan, there's not a strategy, there's not an approach, there's not a methodology that you can develop or adopt today that will ensure and guarantee you avoid all future storms. Sometimes people will say to me, Charles, what can I do to make sure that my team and we don't go through any storms? What can we do to ensure that we have smooth sailing ahead? Or they'll say things, our business plan, we just didn't have a good business plan because the storm surfaced, so something must have been wrong. Actually, that's not true. Let me share something with you about storms in business. They're part of the process. They're part of the growth process. They're part of the life cycle of a business, of a company, of an organization. Folks, storms can be tremendously challenging. During storms, conflict can surface. During storms, we can start to question, why am I here? Why are you here? Why are we here? During a storm, if the storm is bad enough, we start to question, why did I even start this business? Why did I join this firm? During storms, we're supposed to be working with our colleagues and our teammates, but sometimes we slip into our silos and we just kind of duck and cover because we don't know what's going on. During storms, sometimes we don't trust the very processes that brought us success in the past. Storms are so challenging, and I know they are, but I got to share something with you. Storms serve a purpose. See, there are some lessons that we can only learn in the storm. Only learn in the storm. We can take the class, we can get certifications, we can get licensing, we can do all types of things. But there's some things until I push back from the table and I get out in the field, I'm not going to realize what's going on here. Some lessons can only be learned in the storm. You don't know, and I don't know, and we do not know how strong we are until we go through a storm. We don't know the strength of our team members until we go through a storm. Fact is, we don't even know our organizational weaknesses until we go through a storm. And in addition, storms serve a cleansing process, a cleansing purpose. Think about nature. Storms come through in nature and they blow dead weight off of branches. They blow debris, they move things out the way. You ever notice sometimes in nature after a storm, how beautiful it can be? Or sometimes after a storm, storms will unsurface and uncover something that was always there, but you couldn't see it because it was covered by something else. Well, that applies to business as well. That applies to your firm, to your organization, to your team as well. Storms do serve a purpose. You don't know who's really rooted and grounded and believes in what you do at your organization and your company until you go through a storm with them. You don't really know who you can count on until you go through a storm with them. So please, don't do this. Don't see the storm on the horizon and pause and freeze and say, I want to avoid that, and just pull back. I know of a lot of firms and a lot of companies who are stunted in their growth because they saw the storm on the horizon and they said, not going there. Let's avoid that. Let's prevent that. Let's try to just sit back and maybe that will go away. Folks, there are some storms that are part of your path and we have to go through them if we want to grow. I'm going to share something with you, a bold statement. Your goals are on the other side of a storm. Yep, I said it. Your goals are on the other side of a storm. What could that storm look like? Storms manifest in so many different ways. Sometimes the storm is having a tough conversation with a high performer on the team. You know that person on the team who they're a high performer. They do their work very well. Their numbers are astronomical. They're fantastic at what they do. But something about them, there's something else going on that causes challenges within the organization. And you kind of ignore it or you just don't deal with it. But at some point, you got to deal with that. High performer or not, everybody must be a team player. Everybody must be engaged. Everybody must recognize that they contribute to the culture of the organization. And we've seen folks not want to go through the storm because I don't want to have that tough conversation with a high performer because I don't want to make them mad at me. That's a storm. But we have to go through that storm if we're going to grow. Storms can sometimes surface in organizational growth as we grow and as we expand. We thought it was going to be an easy path. I mean, after all, we did have a pretty solid business plan. But then once plans meet reality, reality sometimes wins. I think you know that. And now all of a sudden, we got to sit back and we got to redo this. And we got to look at changing our plan. And sometimes we can be more loyal to the plan than the purpose. And storms can surface because things didn't go our way. And now we have to adjust in real time. We have to course correct. We have to humble ourselves. But that's a storm that we just must go through. There are some of us that go through storms with organizational transitions, a change in leadership. As organizations grow, leadership changes. And new leaders can come in and start to frame and shape new culture. And you hear people say things like, but we've never done it that way before. I know. but let's try something different now. And trying something different, as innocent as that sounds, can create storms within an organization because we like our comfort zone. We don't want to change. So that's just another example of a potential storm out there. We all know about financial storms. Numbers that we projected aren't coming in the way we thought. Now we got to make some tough decisions. Storms. We can't get around them. We can't avoid them. We can't dismiss them. We have to learn from them. We have to embrace them. We have to move through them. So please remember that. Our job is not to ensure we avoid all future storms because they're going to come. They're going to come. However, we can mitigate the impact of the storms. We can be prepared for the storm. Okay, we can learn how to navigate through all of these different storms that will happen in our life, in our business, and in our companies. Now, all that being said, before I give you some strategies or approaches on managing the storms, there's two storms I want you to be very aware of in your work, because these storms can make life tremendously challenging as you are trying to achieve your goal. The first storm that is very dangerous is what we call the quiet storm. And what's the quiet storm? The quiet storm is that situation where we know we have a problem. We know we have an issue. We know we need to talk about something, solve something, or deal with something. But nobody says anything. It's quiet. It's quiet. You can tell when you're in the midst of a quiet storm when the meeting after the meeting has more dialogue than the meeting itself. We'll talk about it in the parking lot, but I'm not talking about it in the boardroom. We'll talk about it in the parking lot, but I'm not talking about it at the staff meeting or the team meeting. See, quiet storms are those things that we avoid discussing. Talk about it. You got to bring it up, time out. We got to deal with that. Because what I've learned is quiet storms never disappear. Whatever we don't talk about, it just sits and it festers and it grows and it gets ugly. So please don't let the quiet storms put you out of business or make your life miserable. And the other storm that's very dangerous is when the storm becomes the norm. Now, that's a situation where the sun never shines, the clouds never part, the waters never calm. We seem to stay in a storm around here. What is going on? No, we go through storms, we navigate through storms, but we are not called, in our businesses and our companies, we're not called to live in a storm. So we've got to continually recognize, though there's storms, we're not staying in a storm. If we constantly stay in a storm, that can create a toxic environment, and that is not healthy for anybody. Trust me, for anybody, that's not healthy at all. So we got to navigate through that. Storms are simply this. Here's a simple definition. Organizational disruptions that can cause significant damage. Storm. Organizational disruptions that can cause significant damage. And they come in all shapes and sizes. There's personnel and staff and team storms. There's financial storms. There's client storms. There's industry storms. And our job as a leader is almost like being a storm forecaster sometime. As our teams go on this journey, we got to start forecasting like the weather person does on the news and say, okay, we see some things on the horizon. We see some trends heading our way. What are some storms we just need to be prepared for? That's what we do as a leader. That's part of our value. Did you know that storm management was part of your title? Storm management was part of your job description? It is, folks. Because I got to tell you, I've seen storms put companies out of business that should not have been put out of business simply because they were not prepared for the storm. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips today to help you manage these storms as they surface. And the one tip is, when you're going through a storm or facing a storm, be present. Talking to you, the owner, the leader, the broker in charge, whatever your title is. Wherever you sit within the organizational chart, we must be present during the storm. Why? Because people must know that we are on board with them. Our presence sets the tone. We got to be in the moment with our team, folks, going through the storm. Do not disappear during the storm. Do not go ghost. Don't ghost folks during the storm. You got to be present. You got to be in the moment. Folks have to know you're there. They've got to be able to rely on you and count on you. Your leadership is needed during the storm. And I cannot overstate the fact that when I say your presence sets the tone, folks, sometimes you don't even have to say anything. You just got to be there. You got to be there. Just the way you are in the room. And there's something about the leader's presence that allows the team members to recognize we can get through this and we can get through this together. Do not disappear on your people during the storm. Do not run and hide during the storm. You got to be there. You got to help them get through it. We count on you. This is very important. Be forthright. When you're going through a storm with your team, the narrative starts with you. It starts with you. See, one of the things we don't want to do is to deny the reality. Don't pretend that we're not in a storm. Don't pretend everything is okay when it's not. Talk to your team members. Hey, y'all, we got a storm coming our way. Or, hey, we are in a storm, but we're going to get through this together. Pull us together and get our collective intelligence to talk about it and to think about it and to come up with strategies on how to navigate it. I mean, be clear and candid and forthright and direct with your team members. I've seen leaders say this: I don't want people to worry. I don't want people to get upset. I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be okay. Let's not tell them. And then they don't tell the team members or their partners or others about some potential storms. And then when bad things happen, when negative things happen, everybody around them says, why didn't you tell us? We could have helped you. You didn't have to get through this on your own. We're a team. Be forthright, be clear. You can call it transparency or whatever you want to call it. But we have found that when leaders and teams come together in a storm, one of the keys is to recognize it is a storm. Don't pretend that everything is great. Well, everything is not always great, maybe. Maybe there's a way to say, you know what, we can positively address this negative situation. Let's do that. But be forthright and be consistent in your language with everybody so people are hearing that narrative from you. Remember, if you don't shape the storm from a narrative perspective, people will shape it themselves. So you got to be very clear about what's going on to help people recognize the context that they are operating in. That's key. During a storm, whether you're preparing for the storm or going through the storm, I really want you to be decisive. Be decisive. Now, that does not mean reckless decision making. See, one way that some organizations and teams and firms are able to be decisive during a storm is they practice. They actually practice. Think about the folks who work in the industry of disaster preparedness. Think about our frontline workers and our emergency service workers and our military and all those folks who put their lives on the line for us every day, and thank them, by the way. Think about them. They practice. They practice different scenarios all the time because they never know what they're going to face. Now, they still might face something they did not practice for, but the practice helped them perfect what they're doing. When's the last time that you and your team practiced for a storm? How often do you and your team sit in a staff meeting or a board meeting or some type of gathering and do some scenario planning? Talk about what's something negative or challenging or disruptive that can happen to us that we don't want to happen. We don't even want to think about it. But what would we do if? How often do you have that? What would we do if conversation with your team? That's part of practicing. And when people practice, it's like exercising a muscle. So then when things do happen in real time, they're able to be more decisive because they've been prepared through their practice. Be decisive. Exercise sound judgment. Sound judgment. Seek input, seek guidance, seek advice. As the leader, as the owner, you don't have to be the one that does everything. You don't have to make every decision alone in a silo. Sure. The decision may be yours, but you can have folks around you help inform that decision. You can have your colleagues and team members and partners and others around you help inform that decision so you can be decisive. Did you know that people would rather follow a leader who makes a bad decision and then corrects it than a leader who doesn't make a decision at all? It's amazing. Amazing. So the decision may not be perfect, but here's the deal. You can change course when necessary. Course correct. Humble ourselves and course correct. But we gotta be decisive. During a storm, we have to observe. We gotta observe. We have to pay attention. So when we're present, as I said earlier, when we're in these storms, we gotta pay attention to our people. Do what I call pulse checks. You gotta do a pulse check on your people. Make sure your people are okay. And don't just ask, are you okay? We have a tendency just to say, yeah, I'm okay. But talk with us, check on us, make sure we're good. Because everybody's kind of putting on their armor and saying, we're going to get through this together, but we may not be good. So part of our leadership role is to observe what's going on with our team. Pay attention to them. Do that pulse check, make sure they're good. When we observe, we're looking for our own blind spots as well. What's happening in the work that we're doing? What are we not noticing that we should be noticing? Observation is a part of leadership. How are my team members conducting themselves? Watch this, observe. Are we operating within the framework of those vision, mission, and values that we talked about earlier? Are our team members, are our agents, are the people who represent us operating according to our values? You and I both know in every industry, including real estate, we all have challenges in terms of making sure we operate in ethical manners. And we want to make sure that we maintain our trust with the community. We want to maintain that we are credible. And part of maintaining that we're credible as a leader, one question that you will continually ask yourself is, am I demonstrating the competency and the character consistent with the position that I'm in? But you're also going to ask about everybody on your team. Are they demonstrating the competency and the character consistent with the position they're in? Why should you care about your team members' competency and character? Well, other than the obvious, let me ask this question. Can one team member damage the credibility of an entire company or firm? Can one team member do that? Absolutely they can. That's why everybody must operate with competency and character. And part of our leadership role of observing is we're watching. We're paying attention. We're making sure that those values that we put out there, that vision that we put out there, that mission that we put out there, are we operating accordingly? Are we leading accordingly? Are we conducting ourselves accordingly? Vision, mission, and values. We got to pay close attention to this in our world, because those help to frame who we are and what people know about us. So observe and pay attention and make sure that we are doing and being what we told the community we would do and be. Let me say that one more time. Observe and pay attention and make sure that we are doing and being what we told the community we would do and be. I want you to be encouraging. Storms can be challenging and can wear people out. One term we hear people say a lot is, they say, it's exhausting. They use the term, they say, it's exhausting, Charles. The storm is exhausting. I'm tired, I'm frustrated. Leaders, sometimes you may not have all the answers, but you do have some encouragement. Lead from your heart. Let me say that again, lead from your heart. The heart and the head can coexist in business. I know you have goals. I know your team has goals, and we all have goals. But I want you to recognize something. The heart and the head can contribute to reaching those goals in this amazing race. Be encouraging. The Latin root for the word courage is heart. Heart, courage, heart. And I always visualize it this way. When I encourage somebody, I'm putting heart into them. I'm putting heart into them. Well, let me ask you a personal question about your own leadership and your own professional journey. Who puts heart into you? Who encourages you? Because I got to tell you something. It's hard to give what you don't have. It's hard for me to encourage my team if nobody's encouraging me. And quite frankly, it works out really well when it's a reciprocal relationship. My team and I encourage each other. Let's put heart into each other. As part of this association, we should be encouraging each other to do the right thing, encourage each other to uphold the standards, encouraging each other to push through the storm. See, when we walk in with that energy of encouragement, it's transferable. People pick up on that. If you're going to encourage your team through the storm, one thing I want you to do is focus on their strengths and the opportunities, not just the weaknesses. Because when we leverage people's strengths, that's when great things happen. And encouragement, believe it or not, is part of weathering the storm, because there are days when people want to quit. And I have so many stories I can tell you around somebody saying, you know what kept me there? I had a talk with so-and-so and they said something to me, it sparked a fire and kept me going, and I'm going to stick it through and I'm going to stay in here. See, that being observant and encouraging go hand in hand, folks. They really do. They really do. Let me warn you something about the people on your team and why observing and encouragement are so important and can help prevent storms. Did you know that people quit long before they leave? People quit long before they leave. They might leave in June, but they quit back in January. Let me say that again. They might leave in June, but they quit back in January. Observe what's going on. Be encouraging. Create a space for people to find their space to grow in their own journey. And then unify. Unify. I want you to consider this. As a leader, during the storm, drama will surface. Don't contribute to the drama. All right? Don't contribute to the drama. Be a unifying voice and pull everybody together. That's what you do as a leader. Do that. And then finally, ask for help. Ask for help. Delegate. Give feedback and get good objective feedback from others on how you're doing and how the team is doing. And guess what? Tag team. Sometimes you got to take a break. When I say be present, as I said earlier, it doesn't mean all the time, every second of every day. We all need a little respite. I'm going to take a break for a second. Tag team. Tag, you're it. Come in for me. That's what I want you to consider doing. Ask for help. Asking for help is not a weakness. It is a strength, because you recognize as this team goes forward, if I don't ask for help right now, I can cause more harm than good. Don't let your ego get in the way of helping the team grow to get through these storms. Remember, storms are a natural part of a team's and organization's development. Weathering the storm is a critical competency for effective leaders, business owners, and community leaders across the board. I want you to prepare for storms by practicing. I want you to navigate through the storms by a team coming together, being decisive, pulling together, making those decisions, identifying the opportunities, leveraging your strengths. And something we don't talk about too often, I want you to spend time recovering from the storm. When you get through a storm, pause for a second, revisit what happened, talk to your team members, find out what worked, what didn't work. What lesson did we just learn in that storm? What did that just teach us? What can we do differently going forward based on what we just did? Folks, here's the bottom line. We in business today are going to deal with storms left and right across the board. And our ability to navigate those storms will be the thing that allows our teams, our companies, and our firms to grow and to flourish. The last point I want to make. Bottom line, find the opportunity in the storm. Don't look at storms as obstacles. Look at them as opportunities. You know, in 2020, there are some businesses in all industries that flourished. Some grew, some didn't. This is not a judgment statement against the different organizations. I am just telling you, I personally know of organizations and businesses and teams and companies that should have been put out of business in 2020, and they grew astronomically. And for the ones that I know of that grew, is because there were leaders who said, okay, we're in this storm right now. And it's a horrible storm. And we don't want to be in this thing. And we wish we can get out of it. But what can we learn in this moment, and how can we adjust and adapt and move forward? That's what I want you to consider doing. Again, this is obviously not judgment against a business that did not make it in 2020. What a tough year for us all. All I'm saying is, as the storms come our way, let's try to find a way to find an opportunity to navigate it. That's our job. to recognize the storms so we can navigate the storms and survive the storms. And not just survive, grow through the storms. So in this amazing race toward your goals, whatever your goals are, as the storms come, recognize them, navigate them, work through them together as a team, survive them, and thrive from the lessons you learned. And you'll reach your goals. And you'll make a difference for your families, for your communities, and for the team members. And we'll all win this race together. Thank you.